What does Piltdown Pictures mean?
So Piltdown, sorry. Piltdown is a reference to the Piltdown Man, which was one of the great hoaxes of the 19th century, where
he was an anthropology major. You should add that in college.
Yes, I was an anthropology major. And the Piltdown Man was a fossil that was found. It was supposed to be the missing link between apes and humans, and it was dug up in England. But it had the skull, kind of a modern skull human with an ape-like body. But that turned out after years of actual discoveries to be exactly the reverse of. So what we find now is actually more human-like skulls with more ape-like bodies. And so they had it all wrong.
You think someone just configured it together?
They did. Yeah. And in fact, one of the people involved was purportedly Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of the Sherlock Holmes books.
Yeah. He was notably really into woo-woo stuff.
Occult,
and
yes.
the occult.
Spiritualism.
Yeah. The thing is that what's interesting is he was a believer, and yet he created this hoax to convince people that they had found the missing links. You would think that'd be something a non-believer would do, but
Right.
or at least someone who believed in science as opposed to the occult.
Right.
Okay, so Piltdown would be from there. And I guess we'll start with your background. When did you guys start making movies? When
Yeah, I'm assuming you guys are big horror fans.
and everything like that. Yeah.
It's kind of different individual journeys. For me, it came from, I was an English major at college, went to Berkeley, thought I was going to do some sort of writing, but I wasn't sure what. And then I did journalism. And then I worked for Wesley Snipes for a long time, for a short time, actually, not a long time. It felt like a long time. Sorry, Wes, love you.
Yeah, he's watching this.
But I was an assistant at his production company on the Fox lot. And during that time, I read a lot of scripts. And I decided to try writing my own. And that first script became a semifinalist in the Nichols Fellowship. And from there, I got my first agent. And then during that process, you and I were dating. And then somehow along, we got married and we had kids. And that became difficult to write. And so I started doing more short form writing, like blogs, journalism, online writing. And that took me away from screenwriting for the most part. So I took a little bit of a hiatus. And then as my kids got older, I started, writing screenplays again. And then we collaborated.
Is this your first time ever being into the entertainment business?
No, I've been in a long time, actually. We both have, but my path was very different. So I came out of college and worked as a writer's assistant and script coordinator on a number of sitcoms and television series, mostly sitcoms, and was writing all the while. My goal had always been to direct, but I thought the best way for me to get there would be to write a script that I could direct. And I started writing spec scripts and instead of selling those, I would get assignments to write existing properties at studios, do rewrites and remakes and things like that. Like, for instance, a movie version of Land of the Lost, the kids show from the 70s, the sequel to the Grudge movie. And eventually we decided, and we actually had written a couple of scripts together a while ago and hadn't had luck. We only did once every 10 years or something, or 5 years.
Our marriage couldn't handle more.
Yeah.
Tell me about, we're the exact same.
I know exactly how that feels.
That one says Weekend 2. We started it back in January. We can't get past the first page. We can't do anything.
Maybe it's the story's fault.
I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's just us. We have two different tastes and everything, but
Yeah. Do you guys find that that's really difficult to work together, write together?
It can be. It can be, for sure. You have to learn the process. I think for married couples or any kind of couple, it's hard to compartmentalize the work from your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
For at least for us and for me as a woman, maybe. I think men have a better time compartmentalizing. They're in the moment. Me, I'm I got multiple windows going on in my brain at all times. So if I'm disagreeing about something, a story, part of me still mad about maybe the fact that you didn't, empty the dishwasher too. So, it's hard to
I did.
Yeah. So, or when they're disagreeing on something, you're like, you just always disagree just to be, difficult.
Wait, that's his argument.
Do you even listen to me?
Right. So it becomes about more than, the actual problem itself, right? So it's not an isolated issue. So it is hard. I mean, I've heard of some writing partnerships that have gone into like a couples counseling, not married couples, just writing couples, because they have trouble communicating. So you add that layer of, that with marriage, it can be difficult. But I think the good thing about writing together, and I think it's because we challenge each other, right? So if something is something that he doesn't agree with, it's not working, you try to learn to take your ego out of it and go, why isn't it landing for him? Why isn't it working for him? And together you find a third way.
Yeah, and I mean, we each have our strengths, so that's the good thing. And I think we've kind of gotten to the point where we recognize them, so we can take criticism. Typically, we can take criticism about those weaknesses from each other. Minsun is an amazing, among other things, an amazing bullshit detector when it comes to story and character. And I end up often just going with my first instinct and thinking that's the best way. Yeah. So she comes in and, is quick to find holes, realize where there are issues. And she's also, I would say, much more creative than I am. She comes up with thoughts, ideas, characters, dialogue that's out of the box, whereas I sometimes fall back on cliche. So, but when it comes to structure, that's just something that I really like. So, and structure's she's not a fan of structure. So, it helps that we play off of each other in that way. And we have different strengths and weaknesses, but we also have the same loves. We love the same genres for the most part, not all the same subgenres, but, so yeah, it can be difficult. I think it's harder for one of us than it is for the other to work together, which is, I think that's just natural that one person's going to have an easier time at it than the other person. I had success on my own before starting, but before working with Minsun, but since we've been working together, my record is so much better. So I like it a lot.
You're welcome.
The grammar looks better here.
Punctuation's right.
We've sold a lot more too.
Yeah. So combined forces actually are more powerful. But yes, you do have to work through the challenges of disagreeing. And I think, just like anything, you're going to have your bad days and your off days. Some days you're just not going to get along. And you just have to expect that and accept that and say, you know what, let's just table this, come back when we're both like not hungry, cranky,
right,
having a bad day, whatever, and not take it personally. And I think the point is consistency. It's like working out. Some days you're just not going to feel it. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Got to do it anyways, right? So you just show up consistently, regularly, and over time that chaos is going to coalesce into something.
I think that's a great tip to like take space away from each other. I think what we fail a lot at is doing exactly that. Like we feel like we have to work or it's like a wasted day. And so we're like, we're chaining each other down to work together, even though it's like making us pull our hairs out.
Yeah, we kind of get more, we fight a lot more in that retrospect because we're like thinking if we're not working, then we're not moving forward. And then and if we're going to try to work, we're like angry at each other because it's like, well, you're not listening to me and this is just wasted time. So now you're just annoying me and I already think we're wasting time. Yeah. And so it's like,
right.
I'm a big believer of like, I think the Coen brothers say this is like writing is a lot of times just napping. It's really being bored. Like you got to be bored. So you start coming up with things in your own head to entertain yourself. And then you're like, well, this connects. Well, that's a cool scene I saw in my head. But how did I get there? Or how did those characters get there? And then you start fleshing it out more and more. And then you're so excited. You tell your partner, you're like, this is what I thought of. This is so great. And they're like thinking like, what are you talking about? I don't see what you're seeing, but at least you're doing something and you're getting involved. Let me try to hop on that train before we lose sight of what you have. And maybe I can add some more things that you never thought of that can make it better.
Right.
And so it's a lot of talking, a lot of just sitting alone or sitting next to each other, not talking. I hear a lot of commentary from The Simpsons, and they're just group of guys or a girl, everybody involved, and they're just making jokes and they're just talking. But they would always be like, the best part of being in a writer's room is when the greasy fast food came in. And they were just happy to eat because you put yourself in a room and you lock yourself in there for hours. And it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I worked on a lot of sitcoms as the script coordinator and the writer's assistant. So I was sometimes bringing the greasy. Yeah. And we'd sit in the other room and just kind of, or the same room, and either listen to them and watch the process. And on some shows, they would be there till 4 a.m. every night. And on other shows, they would be much more, organized and get out by midnight. I would say that, and I was on a couple of writing staffs on dramas, and the room is both fun and miserable. And I don't actually think it's that conducive to creativity. Only because, it is and it isn't. It's absolutely necessary because you're bouncing ideas off of each other rather than off the wall. And the best jokes do come out there for sure. But also you sit there for hours pounding your head with nothing going on. And like you said, the silence is often where you come up with the best ideas. The shower, is where you often come up with the best ideas. Yeah.
Is it waterproof?
It is.
Yeah.
That's also, I should get one of those.
Is that like a whiteboard, or how does that work?
It's kind of like that. Yeah, but it's like a pencil that is impervious, and paper that's impervious to. Yeah, it's very upside down. Yeah, the creator of The Sopranos used to say, "All my best ideas come in the shower." I can't remember. And meanwhile, the writer who went on to create Mad Men worked on that show as one of the writers, and he would say that the theory was your best ideas came in the shower for some reason. It has to do with water, or you don't know, you're not doing anything. His belief was, what he told his staff was, no, the reason is because as a showrunner, I'm always thinking, I'm never not thinking. So they come up in the shower like they come up everywhere. I'm just always thinking. But I actually have read science that when you're doing something, especially something with your hands that is automatic, it frees your brain to be creative. And I think that's more likely.
I totally believe that. That's why I would take crocheting or like even ukulele.
I crochet too.
Yeah, just something that keeps your hands busy and allows you to relax. Get in that flow state.
Yeah,
that flow state is really elusive, where you're both focused but relaxed. And so it's meditative. Sometimes it's walking, it's exercising, it's just doing something mindless, but at the same time, like it's working in the background, like your windows on a computer, right? There's always something working in the background, whether it's conscious, right? So it's trying to tap into that flow state. It's elusive though, right?
And I understand what you were saying about always wanting to work, because that's more my personality. Like, I always feel like I need to be working on the next thing. I need to be moving forward. But the truth is that as Minsun, something I learned from working with Minsun, among many things, is that we just couldn't always work on something. So some ideas would just germinate and sit there for a long time, and scripts would even, and we would be halfway through and it would sit there. And the longer a script goes without being finished, I actually think the better it gets, because you start to, everything you come up with at the beginning is colored in some way by everything you've seen before, by its genre, its trope, and you're trying to figure out what the clever way to subvert the trope is, to do something. But when an idea just sits and you're not thinking about it, and then you come back to it 6 months later, you often have an entirely new way of coming at it. And so those are all the scripts that, in my opinion, are the best things.
That makes me feel better.
I mean,
I'm not scared anymore.
Every inhale needs an exhale, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the process. You take that big gulp and you just let it breathe for a little while. And sometimes you need that distance and that time, and even to forget what you were actually struggling with. That's what we're doing right now with our rewrite on this spec. It's like we ran into some struggles with a rewrite based on some notes, and we took some time away from him. And now I'm feeling less, like I'm more eager to reread it. And then you forgot that you wrote what you wrote even. You'll reread it again, and I've had scripts where I've been like, oh, that's really good. I wrote that. I'm like, oh, I wrote that. That's pretty good. But I forgot, but had I just read it fresh, I would have been very critical of it and said, oh, it's trash. I'm very critical of my own work. But like, if I forget that I've written it and I reread it with fresh eyes, I'll read it with like a stranger's eyes and go, it's really good. And I'm, oh my God, I wrote that. Wow, okay. So that worked. So you kind of need that distance from your inner critic.
Makes sense.
What do you guys is like strategy? Like, do you guys put note cards on a wall, or do you guys
use like the
it's kind of like
iPhone notes?
You've tried a few different things, but I think for us, it's the beat sheet. We
The
live
beat
and die by the beat sheet.
Yeah. The note cards, I think note cards are great, but you can also, there's digital note cards you could do now. For some reason or other, the note cards, maybe because of the way that it's organized. I know it's great. You can look at it all together, but looking at things in order on paper just works better for me. But yeah, we do. So we do a very detailed, we start with, because of structure and, my desire to really understand. And actually for me, I feel like structure helps me come up with story every time. So we start with usually what's the concept? Sometimes there's an opening scene. What's the next thing we're thinking of, and the characters. The next thing that we're thinking about is what's the end of the movie, or maybe more importantly, what's the end of the first act? What's the point when our heroes walk into the forest? What's the part where their lives change forever? And then once we know that, we pretty much know where the movie, we know kind of where it has to end. Of course, ending it can be, very difficult. And then once we figured out, I think, the end of the second act and the end of the movie, then we go to the midpoint and we figure out, so what's the point in the movie where everything changes, flips for the characters and the journey changes? So or either that point or the end of the second act, which is, of course, another hugely important point. What's the worst moment for these two characters, or for all these characters? What is the moment where everything that they've been leading towards is screwed? And then once we have the end of the first act, the middle of the movie, the end of the second act, and this is, of course, assuming you're doing a 3-act structure, but I think almost anything, because that's also a 4-act structure. So it kind of fits either way. Once we have those, we really start weaving those we start stitching those points together with plot beats. We also will generally try to come up with what's the middle of the first act. Once we know the middle of the movie, what's the midpoint between the end of the first act and the middle? What's the midpoint between the middle of the movie and the end of the second act? And then what's the midpoint between the end of the second act and the end of the movie? Which is, and for most of these points, you don't have to follow what are the, well-worn paths of like Save the Cat and the other, screenwriting books, but they get you on the right track in my mind. You know that somewhere in the middle of the third act, the plan at the beginning of the third act isn't going to work. It has to go wrong. So once we figure out all of these points, then we just start figuring out everything else in the middle. So it's a big, broad beats of those important structural points. Then comes a very detailed outline with every scene, literally every scene. And also the rise and fall of every scene. What's the conflict of the scene? What's the important information we get out of the scene? And where do the characters start and where do they end? Then once we do that, we split up and write different parts of the script.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a visual learner, I see it as like a sheet on a clothesline. Like if you're going to put that first pin in, beginning of the sheet, the midpoint sheet pin, that's how you hold up the main things, right? But then you need more pins in between. So and that's how you fill it until it's a nice, taut, clean, sheet hang on the line. But you have to start with the big major anchors. And then once you have those, you can work around it. And then after that, we get really micro. We go like scene by scene, because we are dividing up the scenes.
Right.
So we have to be on agreement. And that part, I'll have to admit, this is the torture part, where before you even get to start, having fun and writing the scenes, you have to beat out every single moment, every scene, every character arc, everything. And that takes a while. And that's where most of the fighting happens. But I will say the disagreements happen.
Debates.
The debates and and they're like, okay, you know what? Let's just and walk away. But the main thing is we always come back together after even the fights can be productive.
Yeah,
for sure. There's a disagreement for a reason, right? And the note behind the note is what isn't working. And so you have to dig behind what is not working. Sometimes you're having trouble articulating why it's not working. And so I think it's important to get curious rather than judgmental about it and just ask the question, well, so what is it about it that's jarring you? And then find out more. Is it a personal thing? Is it just that you're not understanding? Or is it there really a problem with the story? So that takes detective work.
When did you guys start working on this script? Koreatown Ghost.
Remember the timeline?
Ghost Story, yeah.
For 2020, I think we realized what we wanted to do was shift temporarily. We wanted to direct.
Yeah.
And we finally decided, we were just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also knew that some short films had been selling as feature films. So we figured we could kind of get the money together and try to write something that we could do on a budget, but also was just a bit of a story, a
Proof of concept.
yeah, for a larger story, but still had in our mind what was important, and there are plenty of people who disagree with this, had a beginning, a middle, and an end. There are lots of proof of concepts out there that really just are the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But we wanted to tell a full story because we wanted it to stand on its own, not just as a proof of concept, but also as a short film. And I actually noticed we've been to a lot of festivals with this and with another short we have, and we hear that a lot, that people, and we also judge some of them now as alumni, and what we hear a lot, a criticism from a lot of people is, oh, that's just a proof of concept. Like you can smell it from a mile away. It doesn't feel like a full. So it's very hard to find something that has a full story, but is also works as a proof of concept. And so we just decided that was our challenge. So we had already had this idea for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
This was already an idea we thought might work for a whole feature film. We thought, how can we boil it down to something we can shoot in a couple of days on a budget? And so we wrote it, and then we budgeted it out and decided, let's shoot a short film in the middle of COVID.
Yeah,
That's a good
great
idea.
idea.
Which added a lot to our budget.
Yeah.
And almost didn't happen.
There's so many things.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to say, but we've got stories from.
We're gonna hear those.
Hear those.
I'm gonna start the movie real quick, and we could go into that.
Yeah.
So why Koreatown?
Well, probably because we wanted to shoot it.
That's the American Horror Story.
Yeah, that's American Horror Story.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and which is actually was owned by the house we were shooting. It was part of a convent.
Really?
Yeah, those two properties together were owned.
Man, they got a lot of money.
They're haunted.
Where is this exactly?
It's in Koreatown on Harvard.
Yeah, and a very well-known producer owns that house.
We wanted to do a story about being in the half generation, both American and, in this case, Korean, and being in a setting, in a place that's both familiar and unfamiliar, where you're stuck in between generations and you're stuck in between worlds. Minsun is Korean.
And I lived in Koreatown when I first moved here for a short time. So that was my first, neighborhood in LA. So to me, it's kind of nostalgic. It's changed a lot, obviously, over the years. Oh, there's Brandon right there, creeping.
And so this was your first directorial debut? You guys directed other stuff before this?
We did another short that was really kind of part of a film program, but it was a romantic comedy called Side Piece. Really quick and dirty. We shot it in a day. The only thing that was really amazing about it were the actors.
Okay. And then obviously Margaret Cho, how did you get her to sign up on this project?
Oh, yeah, that was kind of a strange circuitous. So when we were trying to figure out who to cast, I had this idea for some reason as Margaret Cho to play Mrs. Moon, even though she'd never done horror that I knew of. So we didn't know her, but we have a casting director friend, Sandy Logan.
She was the casting director of this movie.
Who gave us some great advice. She said, you know what? Doesn't hurt to, I can call her manager or her agent or whoever it was, send her a letter, send her the script, tell her why you think she's perfect for the role. So I'm a big fan of Margaret Cho. I think she's just everything and, an icon. So we wrote a letter, sent it to her, and within the week, she, I think it's because she was not on tour because of COVID. So I don't know, had she been on tour, maybe she never would have read the letter. I don't really know. So it worked to our advantage.
And it turned out she's a huge horror fan. And she's not just a fan, she's an expert.
Yes.
She's an aficionado. She knows every subgenre. She knows all the best filmmakers. So she loves horror, and she had been wanting to do horror. She is also, we think, a huge inspiration to Asian Americans in entertainment and beyond entertainment. And so, working with her, it was like a dream come true.
Yeah. So, and it was just to us, a huge shot in the dark. We never thought we'd get her. So, the moral of the story is dream big. You never know.
And she produced this as well.
Yeah.
Did more money start coming in when you attached Margaret Cho?
If only.
Because this is the business. When that name comes, people throw money at it.
Not just money, but also talent.
Talent, and people take the job even if it's not paid.
Yes, we didn't get any money, but we definitely were able to gather an amazing crew and get Lyrica Okano, an amazing actress as well. And I think it was because Margaret was the first piece of the puzzle, and she lent a class.
Yeah, her star power had this undeniable gravitational pull. So we were able to attract, great talent.
Yeah, everybody wanted to work with Margaret.
And it gave it some validation, right? That
Yeah.
she was interested.
This room is so perfect for the acupuncture room.
Yeah, and it's like a little dining room. That's like a kind of a kitchen, like a dining nook for the kitchen. This house is amazing, honestly. And we love this room, and our DP John Kang, who's amazing and brilliant and wonderful. We wanted everything to be lit in kind of jewel tones to kind of match, for instance, like the colors of hanbok, for instance, a Korean formal dress. The kind of the jewel reds and blues and things like that. So each room almost has a different feel to it. But also like this shot of Hannah with looking at her through the headrest of the massage table was kind of a marquee shot that we really wanted to get from the very beginning in the script. It was written in the script. And we didn't think it was going to be a problem, but John was like, well, we're going to have to put the camera on the ground, and I don't know how we're going to operate it and look up through it underneath. And we thought we were going to have to abandon it. And then we came back, and John had put it on C-stands in a vertical position and has Lyrica stand lean against it. And so that's actually the wall behind her, not the ceiling, because she's standing up for this scene, and that's how we got this shot. Without it, I would have been so disappointed.
And the acupuncture needles are real, and we had a real acupuncturist placing the needles on Lyrica, who'd never had acupuncture before. So I was willing to be the body double if she didn't want to do it, but she was down, and she fell asleep on the table.
It's funny, I got acupuncture recently, and that shit hurts.
It can hurt.
Yeah, I've had terrible acupuncture where I felt caught on the table, like she was in the acupuncture, left the office, and I was in terrible pain. But our regular acupuncturist, who's the one who did this movie too, I've never felt pain.
So you got to find the right person.
Yeah, she's amazing. If you ever want a good one, I'll recommend her. Or she's in the credits.
Yes, her name is Marin Koken.
Did you guys do storyboarding for the shots? How did you guys approach directing and starting a whole...
You draw better than I expected.
Yeah, as like newbie directors, we felt it was really important to map out every single shot, have a very detailed shot list. And we use books. There are these books that are put together by this, I feel like calling it storytelling. I'm trying to remember exactly the name of the company.
Those notebooks that we use.
Yeah, I'll try to remember while we're still talking. But there are these great notebooks where it's set up as a storyboard, and it's got all spaces for lots of other detailed shot lists and everything.
Oh, so it has like the square and then like line under. Okay.
Yeah, but yes, we storyboarded everything. Yeah, and I'm a terrible artist.
So pre-production, how long was that?
Boy, it was kind of fast and furious. Once it started happening, it happened quickly.
Yeah, except that we didn't know. We were actually trying to get this done in one of the lulls between the waves, the COVID waves, and then we had it mapped out, and suddenly in 2 weeks, one of the waves started happening again.
No.
We shot this right near Thanksgiving. And then, so we had it all mapped out. Everything seemed to be good. We had, during COVID, you had to have extra people on the set. You had to have a health officer on the set. COVID officer. Everyone had to get shots, rather tested at the beginning and numerous days in between. That cost a fortune. And then 2 days before we were going to shoot, the family who lived here, the nanny, got COVID. And we thought, and they were calling us saying, sorry, we're going to have to cancel.
This was before vaccines or anything. So, of course, we were all concerned, and everybody was giving us a lot of pressure to cancel the shoot.
Not the filmmakers, not the crew, but some like one of our producers and some people on the outside. But what we ended up doing was making sure the house was fully cleaned, that no one was there for a couple of days before we got there. And we just said, we're going to go for it. And in fact, we felt that our set was one of the safest places in Los Angeles because everybody had been tested.
Everybody had been tested. We tested that morning. Remember, we had a mobile clinic, and that cost us a small fortune too. So we had a nurse come and like test everybody before we started the shoot. And once we were clear, we're like, let's do this, you know?
We would have lost a lot of money if we didn't shoot that period because we had rentals and everything.
So did you guys raise money for this, or is all out of pocket?
It was all out of pocket. Unfortunately, it was. We actually felt like once we had Margaret, we could have, but we also felt like, that's not what a real production does. And we didn't want Margaret to be involved in that. We didn't want her to have to, suddenly like we're fundraising for a movie with Margaret Cho. We should just have the money. So we thought, we're just going to pay for it as the original plan was. Unfortunately, that shot went too fast. Because we decided to do a oneer. What we were supposed to be showing there was that someone has eaten all the food on the table and left a mess. But it's just it was so fast. By the way,
John was running behind her.
Yeah, our DP is the cameraman in this shot, and he's the handheld, and he's following her through it this whole shot. We did have to do that oneer on the bottom. This is a oneer as well. We had to do a oneer on the bottom. We only did it about 6 times, but one of the times we had to redo it because someone said, there's someone in the shot. Who's in the shot? And everybody was locked down.
Yeah, we figured it out.
And we eventually thought it was a ghost.
Yeah. The camera guy, we kept playing playbacks, and like, was it James? He was watching it on the screen on the playback, and he's just like, there's somebody in the shot. But we couldn't figure out who it was. And after a time, he went to investigate, and he came back. I said, what'd you see? He's like, a ghost. And I said, and he wouldn't talk about it after that. I said, what do you mean? And he just like, wouldn't talk about it.
Was it like a figure, like a dark figure? He didn't explain.
Yeah, a figure reflected in a mirror.
I couldn't see
picture frame.
But I never saw it. But remember when we played the movie for other people saw. They're like, who's that other person in the movie? And I'm like, I don't see it. So it's interesting how some people can see it, other people cannot. Your sister saw it,
Adds the production value.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
this was actually the first scene we shot in the movie, which was really difficult because for Lyrica, because this is the scene where she has to scream and cry and
like rip her skin off.
Yeah, and she started the day of a 3-day shoot by ruining her voice.
Oh yes, and she popped a blood vessel in her eye too.
That's right.
From screaming. Yeah,
but luckily it didn't show on camera. Otherwise, that would have been.
I was like, yeah. Did the VFX team have to erase it out?
Yeah, it would have been a big continuity error. The finger gag that is in here also. We had a lot of trouble with because our makeup artists had prepared this whole thing, but once she did it once, it was hard to fix it again. So they're actually the second time you see it, you can see that it's already been done. Sorry, I don't know if you want to talk through the the horror.
Fine.
Yeah, look at the screen.
I always have to look through my fingers.
This is our big body horror. We like to have at least one body horror moment in every horror movie.
That ring is sitting in my jewelry box right now still.
With the finger too?
Not the finger, yes, but just the... And Lyrica is crying real tears here. She's so convincing.
And I don't know if this shot would have worked if we hadn't had the fake finger on the ground afterwards. But even though I'm not sure a nail's going to come off with the skin, we just have no idea. We didn't do the research on that. This was partially based on an actual real degloving, which is what it's called when the skin of your hand or your fingers comes off like that.
Degloving.
Yeah, a friend of ours had a family member who was degloved.
Does the glove come back on ever?
Yes.
Does it grow back?
And you have to stitch.
But apparently it's very difficult. It's like almost better to have an amputation that's cleaner versus like having the skin and tendons be ripped off like that and then reattached. So it takes a lot more rehab. And Brandon is a dancer.
Yeah.
And so his contortions that you see here, it's unreal. He's just so flexible. And
I thought that was VFX.
Yeah.
No, that's how he really moves.
This is how we cast him. We just had a bunch of people crawl across the floor. Also, we wanted someone who was also Asian. Brandon is both. He's mixed. And we just could, even though he's this horrible creature in this, and that's pretty much all he does, we could see his charisma coming through. And so when we sold something to Hulu for a short film that we did for a Hulu series, we had Brandon come back and play an entirely different character. And he's fantastic. Brandon Halverson, I feel like he's going to be a huge star. Even though you can't really see him in this, and everything else he's done, he's just fantastic.
Okay, so the ending isn't fully explained because, I mean, this is a short film. But, okay, so is it like the reason why Mrs. Moon wants Hannah to take over is because Mrs. Moon has been secretly keeping her son alive through like bloodletting of her clients?
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
No.
I guess not. Was it more of like, I want my son to marry like another Korean of sorts?
Yeah, we leave it a little bit open, obviously, in this. Now, in the feature film version, so after this, we took this, we partnered up with
Toby Jaffe.
Yeah, Toby Jaffe and Neil Moritz. Original Film is the name of the company. They're the Fast and Furious franchise, among other things. And we sold it to Paramount. And then, the job there was to expand. But we didn't just sell the short film. It's very hard to do that. We actually had to beat out the entire film and pitch the entire movie to them in order to sell it. So in that version, all of those questions kind of get answered. And so in this short, we kind of wanted to leave it unknown whether or not there's something supernatural or he's still alive. I mean, the implication is it's a ghost in this, but like Asian ghosts in Asian films, it
can be more physical. Yeah,
right? Less, more
corporeal. Yeah. So it's ambiguous intentionally because we fleshed it out in the feature version, and we did write that script before Paramount Players folded. So yeah,
I'm so curious. Will you guys ever make it, do you think?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
we hope so.
We would obviously like to, but we did sell it to Paramount, and then Paramount, in the middle of writing the script, Paramount's been
going through upheavals,
new buyers, and they closed the whole division down. And then, ironically, something like 4 months after they closed the division down, they had the biggest hit the division has ever had, which was Smile.
Yeah.
So had it happened in a little bit of a different order, the studio may have survived it. So our script just kind of languished because of that, along with every other project they had there. So now we own it again. And yes, we'd like to. But there's something about like a project that you work on so much, and then so for us and for the town, so to speak, Hollywood, it becomes like, oh, it's old news now. We already all saw this. So if we attached a new element to it, then a new actor potentially, then maybe we would have that opportunity. Or if we really wanted to try. But I think we've also kind of moved on to other things.
Yeah, the traditional studio system, as we all know, with the writer's strike happening, it's not really working for a lot of people. It's a very flawed system, but it's the system.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're kind of hamstrung by that.
And I think you have a lot to say about that, because the reason why we started this podcast is because we didn't want to follow how it's been in Hollywood, of like waiting for a studio to be like, okay, you're greenlit. So we're like, maybe if we start something of our own, have our own sort of production.
I think the younger generation is thinking, well, like who? I just turned off, but it doesn't matter.
Color.
But I think the younger generation is thinking like, well, I don't know who this person is, but I know who this person is, and I want to support what they're doing.
Right, like
so I'll follow you.
YouTuber.
Yeah, I saw you do a podcast talking about film. I saw your short films, and now you're making this feature. How can I help? More of in a grassroots type of way, like, here, take some money, I want to be a part of this, and any other way, more of effective, like taking the studios out of it and having the power to the creators and their fan base. So it's I'm thinking it's moving towards that direction. So why me and Sally started this, like she said,
one of the reasons,
one of the reasons is we get to meet people like you. We get to learn more about filmmaking, the ups and downs of it, as well as we're building a community and then that community will then somehow help us in a way, and we're going to give back to them as much as possible. So that's the direction I'm thinking how Hollywood is going, but obviously Hollywood has ways of, saying, no, don't do that. That's, low brow stuff, continue doing what we're doing. It's a battle that's going to continue on. I don't know how long. I don't know when AI takes over and we're all dead.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think that entertainment is moving in that direction. Hollywood continues to try to kind of co-opt that and fail. Like the what was it? I can't remember the name of it, but the Jeffrey Katzenberg TV the streamer that was supposed to be all shorts, like, and even a full feature would be like in 2-minute segments and stuff. But it failed, within a year or so. And I think they were thinking the same thing. And of course, YouTube is its own network now, basically. And I think that what will continue to happen is if someone has success on that arena and in that level, Hollywood will then say, "Oh, it's been proven, so it's an intellectual property. Let's buy it and make it into a movie or a series," and that will continue to happen too. But I definitely, I think you're 100% right. Is that a lot of entertainment is going there. Those platforms will exist. Those platforms will grow. Those creators will have lives of their own. Hopefully, they'll continue to be able to monetize it. TikTok used to pay its creators a lot more than it does now, and that's what happens. They all get bigger, and then everyone who is monetized makes less money, and that's kind of the nature of the business. As the corporations want more profit out of it. So hopefully that won't happen. And then AI will help filmmakers a lot, but hurt the creators a lot too, and hurt the crews. And I mean, I'm frightened to death of what AI will do to jobs in the industry. But it also will help small creators, create their projects. So it's,
double-edged sword. Yeah.
All pros and cons.
We always like to ask this question: what do you guys have on set for crafties and food?
Day one, we had these sandwiches brought in by a local, because it was during COVID lockdown, right? So we had to adhere to food safety things, and so we thought the safest thing would be to get prepackaged, pre-made food delivered in by a local catering. So I think a local restaurant, we ordered some sandwiches. I wish I could remember them because they turned out to be great little baguette sandwiches. And then we also had a snack table out, and but individually wrapped snacks, nothing that you could
couldn't do anything fun because of COVID.
So we had to have and water bottle. Everything had to be individual because of COVID rules. So yeah, it wasn't exactly a gourmet spread, but it was food.
No double dipping.
No double dipping. It was sanitary, and that at the end of the day, that's what it was.
But we did find out that so almost we had a couple of goals with our crew. One, we wanted to be at least 50% women. We wanted to be at least 50% underrepresented minorities. We ended up being 60%, I think, in both of those categories. And we continue to do that with everything we've done, and will continue to. But so the cinematographer, most of his crew is Asian American, not entirely, but most of them. And he recommended our production designer, Hanrui Wang, and almost her entire crew was also Chinese American. And so we came out it was the end of the second day of shooting or something. And they all know each other and they're all buddies. So they had brought their own good setup and their own dinner. They were cooking on the side. That's where all the good food was, honestly. It wasn't a craft service.
Honestly, we looked the other way because I think they violated a lot of COVID stuff with that. But middle of the night, I'm I didn't see that. I was just off by.
What was the hardest thing that happened during production or pre-production or even post-production that made you think, is this going to be made? Are we going to is this going to die in the water?
Oh, gosh. I mean, without naming names, there was a few things that happened. I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, so I've got to skip that story. But prior, definitely, like Teddy mentioned, the COVID. Someone catching COVID in the household of the house we were going to shoot in 2 days before was a huge problem. And then that surge happening at the same time. And the fear that, struck our hearts at that moment was, are we exposing an entire group of people to death just for a movie. The ethics of that came up, and you and I were debating that, and we talked with John, who begged us, no, go ahead. We need the money. We need to take the risk. So
That's right.
We had a long, hard talks with people about this. Like, is it worth the risk?
And the crew hadn't worked much at all during COVID.
Yeah.
So they really wanted us to do it and go ahead with it.
So we needed to talk to them to see where their heads were. I wasn't going to command people to march to their possible deaths. That could be its own horror movie. Like, we're in this contagion in this one household and we all catch
mask of
mask of red death, right? So it was actually it was very anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
We were very anxious going in because of the added heightened element of COVID.
And the producer who owns the house, who's a friend of ours, who is a truly wonderful human being, and also a really, really talented producer. But he was rightfully concerned about, COVID and bringing it into his house. And his kids live there or next door. Like they have, they rent out this house. They live in this house, but they mostly live in the house next door as well. But we had one, I'm again not naming names, but one crew member who he did not get along with the producer who was renting the house to us. And there were moments when we thought the whole thing was going to fall apart because it looked like he thought we weren't following all of the protocol and the rules. And what was funny is that at the end of the production, he came to us and said, "This crew is the hardest working crew I've ever met in my 30 years of film." He wanted to hire them all.
Yeah, for his movies. Yeah.
Now, if you ask me, part of that is due to the fact that we had a crew full of people who do not feel entitled at all. They felt lucky to be in the film industry. They've worked their asses off to be in the film industry. They were not given leg up by anybody. And because of that, they just worked really hard. And also, they were all brilliant artists. So we actually hired a bunch of them. We asked, John and his entire crew to come back and work on our Hulu project. And we would work with all of them again. They were
And honestly, we left that place cleaner than when it started.
Yeah, that was he said, "This is the best cleaning crew I've ever had." Because he rents out the place to HBO, Warner Brothers all the time. He said, "You guys left it cleaner than anybody's ever left it."
Yeah, and between takes, I was sanitizing the bathroom. This is how I am about COVID. I was so concerned about spreading germs that I was he was shocked. He walked in, he's like, "What are you doing?" He saw me say, he's like, "You're a director. This is not your job." I said, "Actually, it is my job. There is no job that is too small. It's our movie. I will clean the bathroom. I will clean the toilets. I will scrub the floors. I don't give a fuck."
Yeah, he was making our heads spin because he was, really having difficulty with this one person on the set and coming to me and complaining to me. And then at the next turn, he'd say, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't even be letting me complain to you. That's for the producer's job." So it was challenging. Like, it was so stressful.
He'd never worked on a small budget film. He's like A-list producer, worked on big budget movies, so he was used to having a lot of staff around. He could not believe. I'm like, well, this is a shoestring budget. Who do you think is going to clean the bathroom? And I'm not going to ask a PA to do something I wouldn't do myself personally.
That said, I hate independent filmmaking.
Oh my, yeah.
It's so hard. It's just
brutal.
It's so you're with the budget you're on, you're doing everything yourself, and the stress level is through the roof. And when you have producers who are good and who are taking care of everything as the director and writer, you don't have to worry about that as much. But to be the director and the producer is really
never again. Never again. Never again.
Maybe the creative producer, but not the
best job.
Yeah, whatever that even means.
It's like, I'm gonna go get a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys mentioned Hulu. So you did another short film for Hulu's series?
After I said never again, yes. Just one more time.
Yeah, and that was actually like doing
the biggest lie I've ever told.
Yeah, there was a program called Bite Size Halloween, where they put together filmmakers who they have found on short film circuit, and up and coming newer directors, and they let you pitch the story you want to tell, and then they pick the ones they want to make, and they give you a very small budget.
Very small budget.
And then you make so it was actually, that was more challenging than because we had less money.
And more oversight and more studio restrictions that we had to follow with none of that money, with all of that money that went nowhere except to the studio restrictions that we had to follow,
Yeah, you have to.
So everything else you just have to raise.
If you had a friend who would work for free,
You
nope,
don't. You're not.
you
allowed
can't.
to. You're not
You have
allowed
to pay
raise your
them.
money.
So there goes your money. So like we were just watching the tick, 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 all the money going away for everything that you literally had to pay for that maybe you could have gotten for free had you done it yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Although we did very little for free, and I've actually since then become friends with filmmakers who make short films more regularly, and they just couldn't believe how much we paid everybody. You know, they were like, "You don't have to do that. You can just make an if-come deal. If you sell it, you give them money." I was like, we didn't feel comfortable doing that. We just wanted everyone to feel like they could walk away and they didn't have to wait to find out in success if they'd make their pay. They would just make their pay.
Right.
You know, now if we're going to do something again, I might see if I could find people who might want to work for a smaller amount at the beginning and more if we end up selling it, because we have a history of we've sold one.
Right.
Yeah, we just didn't feel comfortable doing that. But when you have a group of filmmakers who all want to work together and work on each other's films and do it for lower money because they're all, putting in sweat equity, then that makes a lot of sense.
Right. And you're doing it for each other.
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't have a big community because we've worked in the studio system for the longest time. So everybody we knew and were friends with already are union members.
Right.
So they don't do a lot of these smaller films.
Post-production, how long did that take? And any hiccups there? Did you guys edit the film, or did you guys get an editor?
Oh yeah, your editor.
Yeah, we have an editor who's someone who actually I've known for a long time, who was a screenwriter when we started both writing at the same time, and he started as a screenwriter and he moved into editing. So he edited it. He was, I think, just out of the AFI editing program at the time. No, I would say post went really smoothly, actually, because we wanted everything to be practical. So all the effects were done on set.
Nice.
Except for one little thing we wanted to add later, which was a teeny tiny little effect.
But the sound design team that we worked with, Paper Mountain Post, oh my gosh,
They're the best.
shout out to them. They're the best.
Shout out Paper Mountain Post.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they do a lot of horror. And it's actually, that's not their genre of, that's not what they watch.
Yeah.
But they just fell into doing a ton of horror movies, and they're brilliant at it. They're brilliant at everything, but they did this. They designed all of the sound for it, and they did an amazing job. Our composer was a first-time film composer as well. She was a student at NYU film composing program. We absolutely wanted someone who was not Korean American, at least Asian American. She's Korean American. She's actually Korean national. I don't know if she's an American citizen yet. I think she's just over here for the.
She really nailed the sound we wanted, which was traditional folk music, but eerie. And if you rewatch and listen to the music, I mean, she just really understood our vision.
Yeah, and
she used the traditional instruments.
she did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she completely nailed what we were looking for. So post was really, and then we did a lot of finding people whose work we loved on Instagram. And, because we didn't know a big community. So the poster is designed by an artist who is a graphic artist, but for fun, she does movie posters the way she would do them. And I just follow her on Instagram, and she does amazing, beautiful work. So she did our poster for us. And a lot of people we found were people we found on the internet.
Yeah.
Now we've met so many people in the film festival circuit, we have pick our crew from there.
But at the beginning, we were just new to the indie film world. We had no idea. We were just winging it.
In fact, I would say the greatest thing about I've become a huge fan of the film festival circuit. Some film festivals in particular. And the best thing about that is the community that you build. We've made really good friends who are incredibly talented, who we want to work with again and again. And in fact, some of them we worked with on the Hulu project. They were people we had met when we were out with Koreatown Ghost Story.
Which is your favorite film festivals?
Well, you got to attend more of them than I did, but
because you don't want to sit through
well, at the time also we have two kids. At the time, we also had a minor,
younger.
That one of us had to take to school and stuff.
Yeah, that's easy for me. Film Quest is I think the most amazing genre festival in existence in America, at least. It's brilliant. They've been going for 10 years. Every year they get better. And I'm telling you, you go to film, and Film Quest is mostly a film festival for filmmakers. The public can go see the movies, but the audience is mostly the filmmakers. And besides the fact that they do all kinds of fun things and it's amazing, the quality of movies is stunning. Like, you sit through this thing and every single short film
It's a banger.
it's brilliant. And so now I'm actually a judge, so I get to see all the great movies. So Film Quest is amazing. We love Horrible Imaginings in Orange County. Great director, great showcase, amazing movies. I think the Las Vegas Horror Film Festival is very good. The Portland Horror Film Festival, absolutely phenomenal horror film festival.
Sounds fun.
And they also run another film festival called the Philip K. Dick Film Festival, which is mostly science fiction. And the director, Gwen, is amazing, brilliant, and has the best Q&As. The films they pick are top notch. I could go on because Salem is another great one. Salem Horror Film Festival. Yeah, we didn't get to go in person. Panic Fest in St. Louis is another amazing.
That's right. We did a lot of virtual ones because of COVID.
That's what we went when we could. There is a list. Movie Maker magazine does their favorite 25 genre film festivals in the country, and there's so many amazing ones. And going to them is now going to a bad film festival is the most depressing thing.
Torture.
What am I doing?
So bad.
Yeah, but going to the good ones is and then in Los Angeles, I mean, there are a couple, but what's the one we were in that was in Los Feliz? I always forget the name of it, but that's where the Hulu found us.
Oh shoot, what is that one called? They're all blur after a time. Yeah,
it's Film Something, and I can't. Or
really?
I never and they're gonna hate me, but yeah, it was.
And we liked Holly Shorts.
Holly Shorts is a great film festival.
Yeah.
And it's a great film festival for all genres.
Mm-hmm.
So, and any film festival where we won an award is a brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. Great taste. Good answer.
We go back sometimes, even though we don't have a movie in some of these film festivals. Like Film Quest, I try to go back in. And we get to go back as judges, but I just like to go and be there and watch all the great movies.
I'm going to go to that one. Where's that one?
It's in Utah. It's in Provo, which is where BYU is. But it's this beautiful, tiny little town surrounded by the mountains.
Cute.
You can fly into Salt Lake City, and then you take a public train, a great, nice little hour-long train ride, and this tiny little city with still amazing food somehow, and great people. And that's the one. If you want to go and have fun, that's the film festival I recommend.
We're kind of winding down a bit. Let me ask you this one question. What's your favorite film? I don't know why I didn't remember that.
You blanking on that? Come on, you go first.
What? I love The Shining. I think we might share our favorite horror film, which is Rosemary's Baby.
No, that's
and that's also on my list of favorite movies. But I can't pick one. But some of the ones that are up there, Amadeus. It's a Wonderful Life, Wings of Desire.
Wings of Desire, yeah.
Wings of Desire. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Oh, it's so good.
Let's put that in our list.
But be prepared for a poem. It's
it's
German.
It was a German?
Yeah, Wim Wenders.
Wim Wenders, right. Is it Chart Depardieu?
No.
What am I thinking of?
I don't know. The actor has kind of he's kind of the robust face too. But I do not remember the actor, unfortunately. He passed away, though, a year and a half ago.
That movie's like a dream. It's beautiful.
It's like a dream. It's beautiful. Yeah, it was remade into City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan.
Yes.
And I think Brad Silberling directed it. And it's also very good, but it's not Wings of Desire. Wings of Desire is a tremendously stunning film. And there's so many others. I mean,
did you mention Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah, we said Rosemary's Baby. And I'm a big fan of The Magnificent Seven. And I mean, it's hard. There's so many. How about you? What are your favorites?
Yeah.
Well, I love Goodfellas.
Goodfellas is my favorite.
That's amazing.
And one of my favorite movies about it.
Yeah, I love Goodfellas.
Silence of the Lambs is probably.
Oh yes. Well, my background is in illustration and animation, so Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. I had
it's like a jewel box.
The Nightmare Before Christmas and the Andrew Selick movies.
And then we also have this little gag that we like to do, not gag, but a little.
Yeah, this is new.
This is new. You're the second person to do this. You grab a film roll, and
And
attached to it is
is a
a question.
Our little
All
arts
sent
and
by our
crafts.
supporters, all 85 of them right now. No, actually, no. Actually, no. But yeah, dig your hand in there. And I'm going to do this because I know they're
Do
done.
one together.
Yeah, whichever you guys want to do.
This purple one looks.
I definitely want to.
Still in the beta phase.
Which director or filmmaker would you love to have dinner with, dead or alive? You know, this is a very pedestrian one, but it would be Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Because to
Yes.
like, okay, I sound like such a basic bitch when I say this, but I mean, yeah, you know, it's just like he's my childhood,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like he's the reason why I wanted to be in the film.
You know, with Americana.
Jurassic Park was like the movie I would keep putting in the
Yeah.
VHS or the VCR, and I kept putting it in, and I think I put it in backwards, and it destroyed the VHS tape.
How does it go in? It doesn't go in.
I don't know. I was sad, but Jurassic Park is what made me want to become a filmmaker. It was like that's it.
And for me, it was also a Steven Spielberg movie. It was Raiders of the Lost Ark, which would go on my list of
Favorites, right?
That is the list.
It's hard because sometimes E.T.'s on that list, and sometimes Jaws is on that list, and sometimes Close Encounters of the Third Kind is on that list. But for me, I actually can pinpoint the moment that I recognized what a director did, and it was a Steven Spielberg movie. And he might not appreciate the fact that his art was like the puppet strings became obvious to a kid at that point. But it was the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark in the preamble to the movie when Indy is in South America and he's he's escaping the tomb, and he's just about to make it, and then he hears the sound of the ball, that huge stone ball that's going to roll after him, and he turns around, and the shot is a reverse, and it's a one shot of him. I think it's just heads up shot, shoulders up shot. And I believe, I can't remember for sure, but I believe the camera it's a pan up to him when he realized that. And I suddenly saw in that moment that I was being manipulated into
Magic.
Yeah, exactly. And it was that moment that I recognized what a director did and decided that's what I wanted to do.
Be a master manipulator.
Hey, we have the script
Yeah, oh yeah. And it's a
right there.
brilliant script. And that Lawrence Kasdan script is like one of the greatest scripts in my mind ever. So
Don't you have your own answer?
He's up to answered mine too.
Kidding.
Okay, what's the weirdest thing you've done to get into the creative zone?
And you can't say shower.
Yeah, that's my answer.
That's the one.
It's not weird, unfortunately, but I do have a trick that I almost always use, which is I watch 15 minutes of a movie that I either already love or I hear is good, because that inspires me to do something good.
Yeah.
But the danger of that is
It
if
is
you watch.
it'll get imprinted.
Yes, that's a big danger. And then another one is that if it's not good, it's just depressing.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's not good and you don't know why it's not good. Like you can't figure out why it's not working. And then I suddenly have a lack of confidence in myself, because if I can't figure out why that's not working, I'm afraid I'll repeat the same mistakes.
Yours is getting shit-faced.
Yeah. That never worked. It's not that. It helps a little, but it's like I don't even remember what happened before.
That's the thing is that I mean, there's so many artists, famous alcoholic artists and drug addicted artists. But I always wonder, because whenever I've ever been in that state and come up with a brilliant idea, and then later I realized that was the shittiest idea. It just doesn't hold up to the light of day. So have you ever come up with a really good idea?
No, not really.
When you're high.
When I smoke a joint, then I'll be like, well, this is great. And then, but the next day I'll look back at it and be like, I know what you're trying to get at, but you're not really, really thinking it through. And so then I'll have sober eyes on it and be like fixing it. And then kind of like,
Yeah, it's like a dream. They're not that good. They scare the hell out of you when you're having it, but you look back at it.
And so, Stephen Wright actually told me, I saw Stephen Wright. He's a comedian.
Yeah, I love Stephen.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing open mics and I worked at a movie theater, and he came into the movie theater by himself. Cool dude. And I was like fanboying so much. I was like, oh my God, you're Stephen Wright, you're Stephen Wright. And so he went into his movie. He says, thank you for liking my comedy. He comes out of the movie. He waves me over. I was at the concession stand. I run up to him, because it's Stephen Wright. And he says, you should go watch that movie. It's a great movie. And I was like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, I will. And then he says, before he went into his movie, I told him where, like, I did an open mic. I bought a 6-pack and I drank all the 6-pack just because I was so nervous of going up. And he remembered that. And he said, don't do that. Don't do that, because you're really not going to, like, master your skill of, like, it's first, you're never going to get over your fear. And it's going to be a crutch for you. You're just going to keep drinking. You're going to do all that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Like, you have to face your fear, get up there, and almost have the confidence thinking, like, the things I'm saying, they're good. You know, you thought of it. Don't think your thoughts are, like, just dumb and owned to yourself. Spread them out there. Someone will get it. And you just keep working on it until
Plus, also,
everybody
you have to remember what happened.
Yeah,
there.
you do.
That's the only way you can like. Fix
Yeah, but I was like,
jokes.
I was like 17, or no, I was 18. I don't know how I got the 6-pack. I don't know how. Maybe my brother or something. And I did an open mic at a cafe in Santa Monica.
You're incriminating.
I know.
You go to jail.
Whatever. And then 2 years later, I met Stephen Ryan, and he put me on the right path of, like, don't do that, man. Just stay sober and everything. Yeah,
It's good advice. I want to know, though, is when he's off stage, is he as deadpan?
deadpan.
Is he really?
That is him. Yeah, that's it. I loved it.
I love that. That's good to know.
We were doing bits back and forth, and he's like, that's pretty funny. Wow. And so I was like, I know, exactly. And I'm like, over here, so yes. Oh my God. That was a good time. But
That's your go-to story.
do you want to answer the question how you...
You know, I have so many things I'm embarrassed about, but you know, the weirdest thing I think I've done, and you didn't see me doing this, was when we were writing Koreatown Ghost Story, and like I get really frustrated. I do headstands.
Whoa. With or without the wall?
Yeah, I would need the wall because I'm old and I don't want to fall down and hurt myself. But I would use a wall a little bit just as a guide, but I would try to, you know, because it would get the blood rushing to my head. And sometimes if you're upside down, you see a different perspective. It did not work at all, but I just, you know, it was a futile effort, but I tried. And usually snacks help me too, because like usually blood sugar, eating something cheers me up and makes me happy. So it's always snacks. That's always the answer for everything, snacks.
Snacks.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Snacks make me tired.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a medical condition?
I might have diabetes. I don't know.
Diabetes.
I don't know. No, it just it depends on the snack you're eating, obviously. But I'll eat a snack that's like, this is gonna cheer me up. Exactly what you said.
Fall asleep.
And then I'm like, yeah, I can't drink, I can't eat.
I know.
What can I do?
Take a ride, stay angry.
Yeah, stay angry. That's just gonna keep me going. But do you have any other questions you want to ask him, or?
What are you guys working on next?
Yes, there we go. Perfect.
Good question.
Uh,
Or spec.
Yeah, so we're writing a spec script. This is another horror movie that we're trying to finish, that we would want to direct. And then right now we're creating a TV series we can't talk too much about it, but it's for Ubisoft, the French gaming company. You know, they have,
So they own some gaming properties.
Yes.
So
Assassin's Creed, I think, is one.
yes, Assassin's Creed is
yeah, it was one of them.
Division is one. What are their other big ones? Division, Assassin's Creed. They're doing a Star. It's one of the Star Wars ones, I think, right now too. And then there's a huge one I can't remember. So we're doing a take on one of their properties.
That's awesome.
But this is animated.
Animated, yeah.
Which we haven't done a lot.
So that's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That sounds awesome. Is it 3D or 2D?
We don't know yet,
No.
actually, because they like to have the show and the script completely locked down before we get into animation style.
Well, France has like a really big 2D animation program, so maybe they'll like want to push that.
Yeah, maybe. I think that their current projects that are already airing are 2D. I think they have another project that it's already been announced, so it's okay to talk about, that they're doing with Derek Kolstad, who is the creator of the John Wick series, and also I want to say the Nobody series, because I think they're brilliant. There's only been one, but the second one they're shooting, I think this fall, which is a movie that came out a year or two ago with Dave. I'm having trouble with names today because I've just had one of those days. But the actor who is in Breaking Bad and the spinoff Better Call Saul, he's the actor who plays Saul. Yeah, I can't remember now. Anyway, so he's in this movie, and I just say to every screen, like sometimes we would teach screenwriting, And also sometimes we read other people's scripts and do notes on them for them and do analysis. Right now, when I talk to anyone about the perfect first 10 minutes of a movie, it's nobody. It's perfect. It sets up character and then the story in one of the most succinct, brilliant, wonderful ways that I've seen in movies in my entire life. So he created a new series and I think that's 2D, and they're almost done with that. So that's going to come out soon.
I agree. You showed it to me, and
fantastic.
we watched it together. And I thought,
go on YouTube and watch
absolutely.
the first 10 minutes.
It's
Is that where he's an action like a hero?
He's like this regular dad with a regular job, and his family gets robbed, and he doesn't do anything, and then you come to find out that he has a background.
Yeah, I like
he has a history.
Wait, what is it called?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then that's the animated one too?
No,
No.
that's
The
the
director's working on it.
Okay.
No, they have the writer.
Oh, sorry.
The writer.
The roundabout way of talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So those are the two.
Now we have 2 things to watch.
Add it to the list.
Oh,
to the list.
Of Desire. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna
Wings
get
of Desire when you want like this beautiful tone poem that's lovely. Nobody when you want to just have a blast.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Which one would you start first?
It depends on your. It depends on how much time you have too, because I think Wings of Desire is over 2 hours, and I think Nobody is like a tight hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jean de Florette. That's a movie I think anybody should watch. It's a French. Yeah, it's a Gerard Depardieu. That's what I was thinking.
It was,
Yeah.
and that's Louis Malle.
I was, I watched that movie when I was a teenager, but it stayed with me. It's just beautiful.
Bruno Ganz is the actor in Wings of Desire.
No, I think we'll end it on that then.
I wish we had a Jamie.
Yeah, I know we don't.
One in the
but I
back
have
Googling
to
things.
hit the back. But thank you guys for joining us. You guys are great.
So much
And good luck on your spec.
Thank you.
Don't fight.
Oh, I should have mentioned the podcast.
Hey, put it out there.
Is it?
Yeah, you guys could promote anything you
Yeah,
guys want.
shout it
This is
out.
what it's for.
Yeah, so I'm on this one. We're not working on together, but I'm a consultant and writer on a really brilliant podcast. I wasn't involved in season 1. It's called What Happened in Skinner, and season 2 is coming out soon. And it is a drama kind of. It's a fictional drama podcast. There's some thriller elements. It's fun. It's beautifully written. It's incredibly acted. Season 2, and then the first season is an award-winning season. So season 2 is coming out soon. What Happened in Skinner? It's really wonderful.
Check it out, guys. What happened in Skinner?
But what is the alternate reality game part about it? Is it in the story? Sorry. Or was it let you guys go?
The ARG for What Happened in Skinner.
Oh.
It lives both in the podcast and in the real world. So the fans help solve the mystery. They do it. It's in the real world, on Reddit, on Discord. The showrunners are kill me if I don't get all of those right. On TikTok. So it's all around us everywhere. So it's a really rich, intense. In fact, the ARG is one of the most complex parts of creating this. Like there's stuff I'm just writing. There's stuff going on, all the time.
How do you figure things out, like as a listener? Like, is there clues that you guys put out?
So the great thing is that if you just want to listen to the podcast, it 100% stands alone. You do not need to get involved in the ARG at all. But if you are and you like that and you have the time to do that, then yes, there are clues. There's a group on Reddit. The discussions, they start talking about, like, I saw this in the real world. There were some hidden caches last season, and I think there probably will be again this season. So there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of clues in the program, and there are a lot of clues in the real world as well. So like the TikTok, for instance.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to it tonight and won't sleep, I guess.
There are some scary.
Do you guys want to plug in your Instagram or stuff like that?
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah. On Instagram, I'm at Not So Sunny Park. NOTSOSUNNYPARK. Doesn't make much sense, but
On Instagram, I'm Teddy Tbaum, TEDDY TBAUM, and the same on TikTok. And we do a little bit of TikTok, although I have a whole other music TikTok called Music and Junk. which is like music history and stories and things like that.
Anthropology.
Awesome. Follow these guys. They're great. Thank you guys for coming on, and thank you for, thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's it.